Hey guys, how you doing? This is Andrew Sims with the Sims Consulting Group, and I think I got something pretty interesting to talk about, man. It's not necessarily based off a business interaction per se, me having a conversation with a client or something like that, but it was something that happened at the grocery store, man, and me and my kids had a pretty interesting conversation about it. Or should I say, I shared some things with them and they asked some questions, right? And I thought the principle was pretty good. So on this Servant Sunday or Servant Leadership Sunday, right? The title is going to be Faithful in Small Things, right? And the reason that I had this discussion with my kids is because we went to the grocery store, right? And I'm not going to say which grocery store or anything like that, but the person at the register wasn't necessarily having a good day, right? I could see that, they may have had some bad customers that day, right? And things like that. But just to say that we got the brunt of an experience that I'm assuming they had at home or at work or whatever, right? We got the brunt of it, meaning we didn't get any customer service. It was almost like we was they were doing us a favor by coming into the grocery store, which is something that me and my kids have seen kind of increasing lately. Meaning, we go to a fast food place or a restaurant, right? Customer service just is not something that's necessarily on the rise right now, and it should be because we're all vying for the same pie in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? And it always bothers me, but let me share this story. So we went to the grocery store. And the person was having a bad day, right? And like I said, we got the brunt of it. So we got back in the car, and I had a conversation with my daughter because she's my oldest. And I said, "What do you think about that?" And she said, "The person wasn't nice or whatever." And I said, we talked about the contract that an employee has with its employer. And basically, what I explained to her is, when you sign on the dotted line, right, saying that, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for a potential employer, right? When you get a job and you're going through the interview process, you're probably not going to say, hey, man, I'm only going to treat your customers right on my good days, and on my bad days, hey, you get what you get, right? So that's not necessarily the conversation that you're gonna have, but it's the reality of where most people are. And there's a reason why certain people succeed and others don't, right? Because if you're unfaithful at the register, what happens when you have a bad day and you're the manager, right? And you spread that bad day throughout all of your your cashiers and things like that, or your stock workers, and now they all have a bad day. Now more customers are going to have a bad experience, right? So the topic is really being faithful in little things because, right, we did some rough numbers, right? We said a very we're a funny family, right? So we did some numbers where you said basically if a person goes into the grocery store every 2 weeks, right, and they spend X amount of dollars, right? Let's say they spend a couple $100, and they go every 2 weeks, and a cashier can see maybe 50, 60 people a day. And those people, because of that bad experience, said, hey, you know what? We're never going to come back to this grocery store. That cashier that thought her position was so insignificant, right, could have cost that grocery store millions of dollars. Now, let's say this happens a couple of days a month. Let's say she's great for 90% of the time, right? It's excellent, right? You're great 90% of the time, but the 10% are the days where you see 50 customers. Every time you do that, fifty customers say, I'm not going to come back to this location. I'm not going to come back to the location. So over the course of a year, right, you may have cost that grocery store just by having a bad day millions of dollars in revenue, and in turn might have cost yourself a job. Not necessarily saying they would fire you, but the company just may not do as well. Those millions of dollars may mean the difference between there being a grocery store and there not being a grocery store. And that's one of the biggest arguments for artificial intelligence is that we need human touch. But if the human touch is going to cost you business while it's costing you more money, it's not a good business decision. So we have to put customer service back on top, and we have to make that a premium, specifically in the service industry, or else we're going to lose a lot of jobs. And this is just a different topic for a different day. If we don't put customer service back on the menu, because if they can get the same thing without the bad service, the business is going to make the decision to save money and eliminate the issue, right? So I say all that to say, be faithful. When I get that the numbers may not be what you wanted to be, meaning the salary, but that has nothing to do with the agreement. Meaning, when you accepted a job at a certain pay rate, right? And you said I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, you've agreed. Your name is signed to that. You're signed. You're accountable for what you said you were going to do. And unless you said in a meeting, which you probably didn't say because you probably wouldn't get the job, that you can only count on me on the days when I feel like doing a great job. And I don't think many people say that. So I'm gonna assume that most of the people that are working in these industries, and I'm not, and it's not just that. I've been to bad accountants, I've been to bad lawyers, right? So I'm not picking on any particular industry because this industry, it's not biased by the industry, but it's a principle, meaning regardless of basically honor your end of the agreement you made and watch yourself be elevated into the positions that you think are more worthy than others, right? Generally speaking, to me, when I look at a company, your front line, the people that greet your customers, are the most important people in the building. And a lot of times they don't even understand the mission of the organization, which is a horrible reflection on the leadership. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, right, excellence is not an option when you want to go higher. You will never ever be the general manager if you have a bad, or you shouldn't be, right? There are people in positions that have bad. I'm not saying that this is a perfect, thing across the board, meaning everybody in the general manager is a great whatever. But for the most part, those people that are there had to do something exceptional or had to have a high level of education to get there. And you hear my kids in the background playing. We just had the conversation not so long ago. So what I'm saying to you is this: honor your commitments, right? Be faithful in those things that you deem insignificant. If you're the cashier, remember you're the face of the company. I mean, when I talk to people in my consulting arena, I let them know that people don't differentiate you from the owner. You represent the organization. You are in a pivotal spot. And I know you may not get quote unquote paid like you're in a pivotal spot, but trust me, you are. And those are the training grounds for the people that are going to then eventually run the organization. Because you have to understand, you have to be able to relate to people, you have to be able to connect to people. And I got scriptures, but I want to share that principle that don't look at things as insignificant because there's a lot of money attached to some insignificant positions. And if we look at these things like they're insignificant, we're going to be in trouble, big trouble, because you're not going to get what you want out of life if you can't handle the thing that you have now. You're not going to get more responsibility if you have a problem handling the responsibility you have today, right? So I have and this is for you that are doing it and not necessarily seeing the fruit, right? I have a little something for you as well. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. It says, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Right? At the end of the day, right? And I know you still probably hear my children in the background, not sure, but at the end of the day, you doing the right thing. You have a promise from God, right? You have a promise from God that doing the right thing, you're gonna reap the benefits of that right action, making those right decisions, going into work, having a great opportunity, because you never know who sees you. That company, like we talked about the other week, that company may not necessarily ever give you the promotion or ensure that you get the move up or become the manager, right? It may not be them, but you don't know who you're waiting on. There was a story right in real estate that this one lady that I had a conversation with, I'm not gonna mention her name either, but she met she went to a restaurant, right, and had a great waiter, had a great customer service, and she told that waiter, "You would be a great real estate agent," and I actually own the company, so she paid for that waiter to go to real estate school, and now that waiter is now a six figure, not with the one at the front, a six figure earning, and it's not a one at the front real estate agent because she had a great attitude as a waiter. So what I'm saying is, if the company doesn't do it, God has a way of bringing the right people around you when you're doing the right thing, right? And if you're not necessarily a believer, then just look at the law of averages. If you become an expert at what you do, right, and you put forth the effort when everybody else is not, you're gonna elevate just naturally. When you put in the work around people who are not putting in the work, you're gonna naturally shine and move into places where they can't go. So I'm just saying, you got to be faithful in those small, insignificant things that you don't think matter, because they really, truly do. Like, I mean, I looked at that person and I wanted to say, do you know how important your job is? And I didn't have the time because there were people behind me, and I like to have those conversations or just, cheer up, have a good day. But I wanted to tell this person, do you know how important your job is? Do you know how many millions of dollars you interact with while you're here? This is breeding ground for something great if you look at it the right way. And I got the last scripture that I want to give you here. And it's really back to, we used this scripture just, I believe it was on Wednesday, but I want to use it again because it fits so apropos here. It says, and it's Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. These are all out of the English Standard Version. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. We got to keep you have to have the right person in mind that you're doing this for, right? If you're not a believer, then do it for your family, right? Do it for your family. You want to elevate, you want to move up, you want to climb that ladder because you want to be able to afford opportunities for your children and your family that you necessarily didn't have, right? You want to put yourself in a position to win for the people that are around you so you can be a blessing, right? You're blessed to be a blessing. And for the believer, work as unto God. Don't look at that boss. Don't just work for that paycheck, right? That's a benefit of it, right? Let's not be silly and say we don't get up and go to work for a paycheck, right? I know being a cashier or whatever, accountant, and it's not just, it may not be your purpose, right? It's not just saying a specific industry, but what you do for an occupation may not necessarily be your purpose, but I guarantee you it's tied to it. Something that you're going to learn, something that you're going to get, you're going to take from this situation is going to build you up to that person that you need to be to fulfill your purpose, right? So it says, whatever you do, work heartily as unto the Lord and not for men. Keep the right perspective, man. Be faithful in those things, that those little things, right? Those small things that you think are insignificant, because those are the things that separate the great people from the not so great people, right? That separates the Jordans from everybody else that plays in the NBA, right? The Kobe's, the Tom Brady's. Like Tom Brady coming out of college wasn't necessarily, he's not gonna jump out at you, right? He didn't jump out at you at the combine. He doesn't jump out at you today when it comes to athletic ability. But there's something about Tom that has this mindset that I'm going to do every little thing right. Right? I'm gonna have my fundamentals. I'm gonna have this thing down pat, and I'm gonna prepare myself for these moments. Right? Like I put out a post that says, victory goes to the people that prepare for it. Right? And that's true in sports. That's true in life. You have to prepare situationally, circumstantially for these things to turn into what you believe they should be. And I'm not going to hold you for too much longer, but again, be faithful in those small things. So we use Colossians chapter 3, verse 23, and then we started at Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. So once again, this is Andrew Sims with the Sims Consulting Group. You be blessed, man. Look at that as an example. I'm not trying to speak down on that person because I don't know the situation. I pray for them. But I hope that that's not a consistent routine, and I hope that you learn something from it so that way you can excel and get to the point you want to be at. Peace.